Hello and welcome, David here from Bronze Serpent Chess. Today is a historic day because on this day, the 29th of August, 2023, I will be sharing with you my best Blitz game hands down. 30,000 games in the database according to chess.com, and this game stands at the pinnacle of my chess league career. And here I am sharing it with you today. Now, you might be wondering, David, why are you wearing those ridiculous glasses? These are the old Thug Life glasses, and those of you who watch the stream will know that I like to wear these glasses where I'm about to make a cool looking move that may or may not be a brilliancy. But I've got them on today because there are a couple of brilliancies in this game, so be sure to stick around to the end and I'll give you a little bit of time to see if you can spot the crazy winning combination at the end of this game. We have one, e4, e5. Now you can see before we even go any further, my opponent is 2200. I'm 2000. This is an unrated game on chess.com. A little bit more context is that my opponent and I had played 2 games preceding this, and he won one, I won one, and now this is the third and deciding game. Now my plan was always to play a gambit because all of the games have involved some kind of gambit. I played the King's Gambit at first, he played the Smith-Morra Gambit in the second game, and now I'm going for a similar idea to the Smith-Morra Gambit. The Smith-Morra Gambit comes out of the Sicilian defense, where black plays c5, takes, and then you play c3, and the idea here is white has given up a pawn but has a little bit more of a developmental edge and has lots of easy moves to play in terms of development and can hopefully turn that initiative back into material. So of course my opponent doesn't play that. He played his e5, so instead I go for the same idea, except this is the Danish Gambit where you push c3, sacrificing a pawn for similar reasons to gain initiative. But my opponent, he responds with d5. He doesn't take the free pawn. And this kind of freaked me out a little bit. He's stronger than me. He's probably got a better idea of this kind of trappy type theory. And I was a little bit concerned at this point. And so I played something to try and get him out of any possible theory that he would have when it comes to playing the Danish Gambit. So I actually push e5 here, which you can see is a mistake, although some masters have played this. And this is, fortunately for me, the last mistake that I make in this game. So he responds with c5, I take in the center, and now he plays knight to c6, and I respond with knight to f3. And already here, black has a little bit of an edge. And the reason why is that there's a lot of pressure on this pawn. And I don't really want to take on c5 because then it leaves this e5 pawn pretty advanced, and it's just going to be difficult to try and hold on to this pawn long term and keep control of the center. So he plays bishop to g4, and now he's putting even more pressure on the d pawn because what he's threatening to do is to jump in with a knight, take my d4 pawn, and of course I can't take back with the knight because of the pin on the queen. So this is a serious concern for me. I respond with bishop to b5, preventing the knight from jumping in because now the knight is pinned to the king. So there's quite a lot of tension already at this early stage in the game. He plays queen to a5, which is quite a concerning move for me because unless I can play one move, I'm going to lose my bishop. There's a check and he's attacking the bishop at the same time. I must respond. I play knight to c3, defending the bishop and stopping the check. So he castles, and here this queenside castle move is a little bit of a mistake. I can see what he was trying to do is to get rid of the pin on the king so that he can finally play knight takes d4. But of course, I'm not going to allow that. I'm just going to take his knight immediately. He's going to take back, and now I castle. And now I'm actually doing perfectly fine. His king is a little bit of exposed. You know, these pawns that are in front of the king usually protect the king are no longer there, and I have a perfectly fine position with my king tucked away on g1. He takes, and I take with the queen. And this is really the only move that you can do here. We can play with the white pieces. Of course, you can't take with the knights because your queen hangs. So I take with the queen, and this is great for me. I'm thinking I'm centralizing my queen. I'm attacking the bishop. I'm pretty happy. Now he takes, and of course, because I'm attacking his bishop, taking is probably the best way to go, and also gives him a little bit of compensation in that I have these doubled pawns on f2 and f3. My king is a little bit exposed, but truthfully, I'm not too concerned about that. He's behind in development, and he needs to try and see if he can drum up some activity, and hopefully maybe at some point open up the g-file, but for the time being, I'm perfectly fine. And this is especially true after he plays bishop to c5, attacking my queen, and now my queen even though it's very central, I'd prefer not to move it. I'm perfectly happy to see that move because I have queen to g4, check, and now also attacking the g7 square. Of course, that pawn I'm never going to take, because if I take at some point, maybe after he makes his move, he plays king to b8 and I take. This is not ideal because the rook can swing around at some point after the knight develops to e7, and then I'm just giving him complete control of the g-file, and I don't want to do that. So after thinking about taking here and realizing it was no good, I realized that I had another really sharp move. Potentially game-winning move. So I'll give you a moment to see if you can find the move that I played. 3, 2, 1. I played b4, which is a little bit of a strange move on face value, because the b4 pawn is being attacked twice and it's only being defended once. So what's the issue here? It looks like, oh, it's a fork, but no, it's not. I mean, you can just take. And that's exactly what my opponent does. He takes. However, I'm highlighting the problem with this king to b8 move. The king to b8 move is not great because now it gives me some access to attacking the king via the b file. He should have probably played king to c7 instead when I threw in the check with the queen on g4. Because now I immediately follow up with rook to b1. And now I am attacking it twice. And he's only defending it once. And yes, he can defend it a second time by pushing this pawn. But now I have the follow-up. a3, attacking the bishop. And this is a common thing. Whenever you're playing chess, if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, advanced, whatever, when you get into these kind of positions where there's a pinned piece, if you can attack the pinned piece with a pawn, that's usually good news, which is exactly what I do. He follows up with d4, and this offers some kind of counterplay where he's attacking my knight now, but I don't really care because I've got a tempo on his queen. After I take, which I go ahead, I take the bishop, he doesn't have time to take back my knight because of the fact that his queen at least, is under fire. So he has to take back. He takes back with a c-pawn, and I shift my knight across to e4. He plays knight to e7, and then I jump in again with my knight to d6 because I see here this is a great outpost. It does a number of things, this move, attacking the f7 square and also cutting off the rook from defending d4. Now I can take on d4 with my queen, and he can't deal with both of those problems at the same time. So he deals with a fork, that's the priority, which makes a lot of sense. And here I spent a bit of time thinking of what I was going to do next if I was going to indeed take this pawn. I saw that it was hanging, but instead I decided not to. I played queen to e4. So a little bit more of a pressing threat, centralizing the queen and threatening checkmate in one. My opponent has to deal with that, so he plays queen to b6. Right, this is where it gets interesting. I'll put on the old brilliancy glasses. So here, I was seriously considering bishop to f4. And the reason bishop to f4 is because I wanted to put pressure on the old diagonal with the king on it, maybe do some kind of discovery, put the knight over here and pick up the queen, but all of this just seemed a little bit too slow. And then, voila, it hit me. I had a revelation and I could see exactly how to play the winning combination, and everything just came off without a hitch. I played bishop to d2. And now, after my opponent does what I expected him to do, he plays a5 to try firm up the b4 square. What, pray tell, is the winning combination if you're playing with the white pieces? I'll give you 3 seconds to pause, 2 seconds to pause, 1 second to pause. The winning move in this position is bishop takes b4. Okay, now bishop takes b4, you might have well guessed, but why bishop takes b4? After taking with the a-pawn, rook takes b4. 2 brilliancies back to back. And now if you take with the queen, rook to b1. And now the queen. Okay, so the queen is being given up for 2 rooks and a bishop. That's fine. That's a great trade. You take that trade any day of the week, except if you take this rook, you are getting mated. At the end of the road, the king is so exposed and the queen on b1 is so threatening that there's nothing that you can do. You cannot escape mate in one wherever the king goes. So what could you do here if you're playing with the black pieces? Well, there's a couple of things that you're supposed to do. After I sacrifice the bishop and take back with a rook, now what you should do is say, okay, well, my queen's going down swinging. I'm going to take over here. And then if I, take the queen, you actually aren't doing too bad in terms of material. The position is still lost, but it's slightly less terrible. Of course, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take the rook with my pawn. And now if you take back, it's the same problem. I play rook to b1. You have to take. I take back. And now whenever the king moves, I'm going to pick up the knight and I'm going to just be up material and be able to win the game. The other option here, along the same lines, is takes, sacrifice the rook, takes, I take, you take the rook, and now I play rook to b1, but here you can throw in this in-between move, knight to c6, okay? And I can't take the knight because, of course, my rook is hanging. That would be catastrophic. But what I can do is I can take with a rook, you take back with a knight, and now you've got a rook and a knight. The material seems okay, but why is white winning? I mean, why is white up plus 11? Because after white takes on d4, believe it or not, the knight, which looks like it has so many squares, is actually trapped. How epic is this? Whatever you do with the knight, I'm going to throw in a check. The king's going to move, and I'm going to snap up the knight with the queen. If it moves down here, I've got check. If it moves over here, same check. If it moves over here, the same check as before. And of course, these two squares are, you're just going to take with the queen and be up an enormous amount of material with the advanced pawn. White is just winning. So whatever route you take with the black pieces, after this winning combination of sacrificing both pieces, you're going to come out on top. And that really is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful game. It was so much fun to play. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.